You know, Patriot Act arose out of the horrific attacks of September 11, 2001. And on that day, I was at work at the Central Intelligence Agency. In fact, my unit chief down the hall pulled the shades up, saying if the next plane is coming here, he wanted to see it coming. And there was a period of time after that when we were absolutely focused on national security issues and ensuring that the folks who were protecting our country had the tools that they needed to do so. But the fact is that what we saw over the course of the next many years were efforts that affected our civil liberties in a negative way. And the important thing that we must always remember is that terrorists can strike us and hurt us. We hope they don't. We hope we take the protections. But it's up to us to ensure that we don't change what makes America great, that we don't undermine our own freedoms, that we don't restrict free speech, that we don't restrict freedom of movement, that folks have an opportunity to be heard, to assemble, and to talk about the issues that are important to them. And unfortunately, our country, if we reacted with an understandable fear, but it's a fear we should not have. And so to me, the Patriot Act had some useful and necessary reforms to help our folks who keep the country safe, but over the past few years has raised serious concerns about our civil liberties that concern me greatly.
Mr. Gibson.
Well, let me just set the record straight here. He's being fast and loose. It seems like excessive. But, you know, he says that I'm only, including economic impacts. It was to include impacts, not to rule anything else out. And to me, that's a pretty commonsensical thing. You want to look holistically before you make decisions. In fact, I think we need more accountability and transparency in the whole rulemaking process. I voted for the REINS Act because part of the frustration my constituents have is bureaucratic agencies propose a new rule, and then, and then our constituents feel like they can't even influence it. They can't get at it. What the REINS Act says is any new proposed rule that has $100 million of greater impact on the economy has to first go to the people's representatives for an up or down vote. That makes my job harder. I recognize that, because certainly I'll hear from you, and I should, and I please do. But that way we have accountability and transparency in the process. Look on the Patriot Act. You know, it was a wise man who once said that a person who will give up his civil liberties, for security deserves neither. And that was Ben Franklin. And he was right then, and he's still right now. And my issue with the Patriot Act, clearly, I spent 29 years in the military. 24 years in the Army, multiple combat tours. I bled for our country in Iraq. But the Patriot Act is unconstitutional. Because here's why, and I want to be specific. The Patriot Act, says that you need to have specificity for roving wiretaps. Unless you don't have it, then a generalized description will work. But here's the problem. If you believe that's important, then we got to change the Constitution. Because the last clause of the Fourth Amendment explicitly states that to get a warrant, you need to have specificity of person, place, or thing. I fought for this country. I put everything on the line for this country, and I'm not going to go down to Washington, D.C. to step on the Constitution.
1 minute rebuttal, Mr. Schreiber.
Sure. Let's talk about the REINS Act then, since we put it back into this question. Here's what it does. If the EPA proposes a regulation, another agency proposes a regulation under a law that's already been passed and it's within their authority, it goes to Congress and they have to bring it up for a vote and vote on it. And let's think about what's happened in Congress the last couple of years. Has much stuff come up? Has there been any progress made? What this does is allow the leadership of the House of Representatives, which hasn't brought the President's Job Act up the entire time it's been there, to take anything that it wants to and kill it without the light of day. It's not about folks getting more of a say into it. It's creating a process that will debilitate the ability of our government to perform its mission and follow the laws that have been set for it.
Mr. Gibson.
Well, look, I know you mentioned the President's Jobs Act. We took up parts of that. That's part of compromise. I supported parts of this. I was one of the only ones in my party that supported the payroll tax extension for a period of time right before the holidays. And the President asked us to do those trade agreements. I looked at it. Farm Bureau asked me to do it. I was proud to support it. Transportation bill. You know, we supported it. I gave you the story on the facts on that earlier. And then the student loan. The president asked for us to keep the student loan rate at 3.4%, and we did that. So we are working together. You just don't get everything. You know, with regard to the RAINS Act, let me just say this. It's $100 million of greater impact on the economy that has to go to the people's representatives. And let me give you an example. The Farm Bureau now, one of their top issues is not taking the word navigable out of the Clean Water Act because they're concerned about the farmers. Our farmers are concerned about the encroachment that's going to be on their farms. So, you know, I'm looking at this in supportive of our farmers. I'm proud to have the Friend of the Farmer Award.
Thank you. We will now ask each candidate to deliver